And across to Sydney's Warwick Farm for the 1971 Australian Grand Prix.
Good afternoon and welcome to this Australian Grand Prix, this live telecast from Warwick Farm in Sydney. And for Sydney, the first touch of summer, about 85 degrees, a glorious day, a light northwesterly wind. We had rain here at practice, that's all gone away, and the cars are on the grid for the 36th holding of this great motor race in Australia. The first Grand Prix in 1928 in Phillip Island, Victoria, and down through the years with the break of the war years, has been won by some of the most famous names in Australian motor racing history. 1 minute to go, and I can assure you, those of you watching, this is the best camera coverage we've ever had of the Warwick Farm circuit. Our technical staff have bugged this course with the efficiency of MI5, and you'll see some magnificent pictorial shots as they go around this 2¼ mile circuit. Australian Grand Prix, 45 laps, 101.25 miles. The defending champion in car 1, Frank Matic.
It's the chief starter, Dennis Stirrup, keeping a check on things. Less than 5 to go, and you can see the grid starting to edge its way now. And Matic makes an incredible start and leaps away to the lead. Robert Muir's thrown the whole thing away. He must have made a very bad error there, and he's passed by 4 or 5 cars as the field storms away through the long right-hander of Paddock and across the very fast section through Homestead and storming down Hume straight towards Creek.
That's our camera from Homestead Corner. This is where they go into the fast part of the track. All cars off the grid. And look at this huge crowd here at Warwick Farm. Many thousands watching the futuristic Repco Matic A50 fly down into the Creek Corner. This is the slow part of the track through to the S's, and going through behind will pick them up in order as they finish the first lap. But the man at the moment is out in front, and that's Frank Matic. And here he is coming through the S's from our separate camera in the S's, under Shell Bridge, and into this winding, tortuous part of the track. The pace really on now, and the car strung out in this first lap. And once again, a huge crowd in that area too, a great vantage point to watch some of the most exciting parts of this race. Here's Frank Matic moving up towards the causeway. This is the lake. You see the lake in the middle of the course here at Warwick Farm. This is the left-hand turning part, and he's about 2/3 of the way through the first lap. Now, out of the causeway, the 2 smaller cars behind him, we have Bob Muir, Johnny Harvey and Max Stewart. Matic out in front will come up to Polo Corner and then do the sweeping right-hander to complete the first lap. Swinging round the right-hander into the short straight, and Frank Matic now coming down to complete lap number 1 of 45. Second placing is 7-6-5. 7-6-5 and 9, so let's take the order. It was Frank Matic in front, followed by Johnny Harvey, then Max Stewart. Car number 5, Kevin Bartlett, well off the grid from about the 4th line, and Alan Hamilton. So the order is Matic, Harvey, Stewart, Bartlett, Hamilton.
Well, that's a very impressive start, I must say. Apart from Matic's already dominant lead, we've got 2-litre cars and 5-litre cars inextricably mixed in the next 5 places, and it's anybody's race at this juncture for second position. Matic's there looking typically in command, wheeling his way around Creek, blasting off through the S's again.
And in the pits is car number 8. This is bad luck for Bob Muir. He was the second fastest qualifier in the Mildred Waggett. This is the old yellow submarine. The yellow submarine is going back to base.
Well, I can just imagine Robert Muir, he's saying very laconically, something broke, don't know what it is, we'll put it away. And that'll be Robert Muir's approach. He's a very unflappable young man.
Well, Frank Matic back to the causeway again. He seemed to be there about 30 seconds ago. He's really flying out in front. Second two is cars 7 and 6, Johnny Harvey and Max Stewart in the 2 small 2-litre cars. Batwing stabilisers right in force there, Graham.
Yes, they're very significant enhancement to the car's handling capacity. You'll notice there are little trim tabs, as it were, on the front, and a very broad wing at the back. These all help to compress the car down on the road, vastly increase their handling, particularly through very fast corners.
Well, the order after the second lap, car 1 in front, it's 1, 7, 6, 5, 9, 14, 3. Car 1 is Frank Matic. Car 7 in second place, Johnny Harvey, Victoria. Car 6 third is Max Stewart of New South Wales. Then car 5 is Kevin Bartlett, going very well indeed. Car 9 is coming into the next place, and 9 is Alan Hamilton, followed by car number 14. I'm looking for John Surtees, and he's back in, at the moment, 7th place, John Surtees.
Well, he can only improve. And he made, I thought, a rather careful start. He didn't waste any time, but he didn't run over anybody when the flag fell, and I think this is probably the right way to go about things. Surtees' placings, I think, today will depend essentially on reliability rather than sheer speed. His motor car doesn't seem as though it's absolutely competitive with Matic. He's just going to have to pick his way up as best he can.
Well, let's look through the field this time. We'll hold the leader as we get to pit straight. This is Frank Matic coming through, and we'll see the first 7 or 8 cars. As we gave them to you before, the car numbers would be 1, 7, 6, 5, 9, 14 and 3. And let's see what happens. They're the next two coming through, 7 and 6. And here are the next group, and there should be 5, 9, 14, 3. Yes, 5, 9, 3, 14. So John Surtees has moved up ahead of Graham Norris, and John Surtees, webbing his way through the field, has come up into 6th place. Now all that are in front of him now are Matic, Harvey, Stewart, Bartlett and Hamilton.
Yes, this is shaping itself up into quite an interesting struggle. Very few laps down at this stage and a long way left to run. But Bartlett in particular, not very happy with his motor car at the moment, except that it goes fairly well, he says, in a straight line. He is nonetheless very well placed, I think. But you see him coming out carefully there from Creek, right out on the inside of the road, so that he can have a fairly open approach to the beginning of the S's.
Now Bartlett here in car 5 has 2 behind him, and Hamilton and Surtees are right behind him. John Surtees moving up still further, is he? Let's watch for John Surtees in car 3, the former world champion. Now Bartlett in car 5, Surtees is in car 3 with Hamilton, who are just behind. So let's watch for the next number as they come into the causeway now. And who's this behind him? Is it Surtees? Yes, John Surtees moving up another place. So in 2 laps, Surtees is moved from 7th into 5th place. Now in front of Surtees are Matic, Harvey, Stewart and Bartlett. So John Surtees, who was well down on the grid, a fairly slow practice time, 127.2, apparently has his car moving pretty well, Graham.
Watching Surtees there, and he's putting just a half a wheel on the dirt and working fairly hard. He's obviously not going to treat this race as a mere test drive. He's obviously competing. The point about this, of course, is that as you get closer to the top, the hill gets steeper. And successively, he's going to have to work harder to pick off the places between himself and Matic.
Well, here's Surtees right behind Kevin Bartlett. Now, here's the great dice between these two. Surtees applying the pressure, a man of great international experience. Well, he was a world champion, and he's going through the field now, webbing his way through. But Kevin Bartlett is one of our best Australian drivers, and this should be a good dice between the two.
Yes, indeed. You can see Bartlett's been round the farm before. There's a little point there, right-hander in the middle of the S's. We have to actually aim at the arm car, and you find you just missed it. And he's doing that perfectly.
In the pits, another scratching number 10, Colin Hyams from Victoria. So 2 cars out of the race so far, but back to the dice between Bartlett and Surtees. And where are the passing points here at Warwick Farm, Graham? How many opportunities really on this track have you to get through?
There are a considerable number of opportunities. It depends how you want to do it, actually. It's unlikely that cars of the roughly similar performance that we've got here on the screen would attempt to pass each other actually at a corner. But by judiciously selecting a corner where you're faster, or where you think you're faster than the man in front, you can perhaps hang back a little, go through the corner faster, and hope to knock him off down the following straight. Alternatively, you can bluff him out of a corner under brakes, and particularly at the end of the straight, at Creek Corner, this is a fairly regularly practiced technique.
Now, here's the straight, and we're looking now in Hume Straight, the fast part of the track, and the lead cars are in lap 6 of 45. And with us here, that's Johnny McCormack we're watching now. We've been joined by Frank Gardner. Frank Gardner's up here. Well, Frank, is it as exciting watching a race on television as being in it?
Well, Norm, it's not as exciting as being in it, but it's the next best thing. And the coverage here is excellent. I think the cameraman have done a fabulous job of covering this circuit. The resting on the cars just long enough to observe the driving styles, and it's very interesting watching the different people, especially John Surtees, who's a very relaxed type of driver and does less elbow work than most of the other chappies, although he's not going anywhere near as quickly as Frank Matic, who's putting up a quite a fantastic performance in a brand new motor car, and really has to be seen to be believed to think he can get this sorted so quickly.
Frank, if you were driving car number 3 now, John Surtees just behind Kevin Bartlett, where would you have a go?
I think with John Surtees you will find he will pick Kevin off at the end of the straight under brakes. He will require the toe down the straight, and as Kevin's car seems to be faster in a straight line, and John will move through at the end of the straight under brakes.
So they're coming round to Homestead now. After they go through this section here, it's into the fast part, and you think this is where it could happen?
I would have thought John will make his bid on Kevin at the end of the straight. And you can rest here, but he certainly has been feeling him out for the last 2 laps there. But he just can't pick up the toe. You can see about there trying, but he has to tuck in again, but he will do it the next time.
How late can you leave your braking at the end of that fast straight, Frank?
He's got a reasonable amount left there. He's just feeling out the surface. He's felt it out and he's getting deeper each time. But he needs to be a bit closer for the toe down the straight, and he's a lap away from doing this particular trick.
Well, Frank, you had an unfortunate time yesterday banging your car up at 90 miles an hour when you started. That must have been a nasty experience.
Well, it's the name of the game, unfortunately. This is motor racing, and you can do without this sort of thing. It's a bit hard on your heart. But you can see John feeling Kevin out for a toe now, but he won't really make his move to the end of the straight. I'll be very surprised if he does.
Colin Hyams in car 10 is back on the track. What's your view, Graham? Do you think that, what's your part? When's it going to be? Or is Kevin Bartlett driving a really good race out there in front?
Yes, he's certainly going particularly well. But I'd certainly not venture to pit my racing experience against Frank Gardner's. If Frank says it's this lap, it's got to be this lap.
An amazing performance by a 2-litre car, Frank. These small fellows are going really well against the big 5-litre jobs.
Yeah, I was terribly disappointed to see young Bobby Muir in the pits after such a fantastic practice time. He really does drive well, and to be in so early is a bit of disappointment.
And it looks like Kevin Bartlett just creeping away from John Surtees into the braking area again to Creek Corner. This wonderful shot round there. And there's the leader. Now, here's the man we want to talk about. What's this for Australian motor racing, Frank, where you have an Australian car with an Australian man, a great chance of winning this Australian Grand Prix?
I would have thought Frank Matic today stands a very good chance of winning a Grand Prix. He's not pressing his equipment at all hard. If you study him, he's got lots of road left. He doesn't have to. He's a nice early apex, which is always a sign of not trying. And he seems pretty relaxed, and nobody knows the farm better than Frank Matic. And I think that he is the man to put your money on today.
Well, Graham, you know this car almost blow by blow, and as it's an Australian car, as we see Frank going round, you could tell us something about it.
Well, it's the first open-wheel racing car that Matic has been directly designed involved in the design of, although his previous McLarens have incorporated a lot of ideas of Frank's own. And in fact, the car that Colin Bond's driving today is Matic's most recent modifications to the McLaren. And a lot of that's been built in to the AR50.
Well, at the moment, we're looking at car 10. We're actually looking for the leader, Frank Matic.
Well, that's Colin Hyams back in the picture now.
Yes, Colin Hyams back on the track.
And there's Matic now, bumping his way over the little bricks on the inside at Creek and pointing up towards the S's. Again, like Bartlett, he's very, very fast through here.
Now, the leaders are on lap number 9, so Frank Matic has completed 9 laps of the 45 laps for this Australian Grand Prix. Frank, over the years, the design of these races has changed quite a lot, and a significant point about this Matic car are these big back wheels.
Yes, well, this is the design of the tyres, which have advanced enormously over the years. The new tyres on a racing car these days have no tread whatsoever, and they look quite dangerous, actually, but through having no tread, they work exceedingly well on oil, and you have to have a very wide rim to stop any form of rubber displacement. So you wind up with an area of around about 16 inches making contact with the road. But at the same time, you have to do an awful lot with the suspension to make it work, and it's very creditable that Frank Matic can get this sort of thing to work in his car so early.
Well, here's the other two of John Surtees and Kevin Bartlett. These two are having a great battle between the two of them. This is a fight for 4th place. We have Matic in front in car 1. Car 7 is running second, Johnny Harvey. Car 6 will be third, Max Stewart. Then these two, that's car 5 and car 3 in the battle for 4th place. And they've been like this for 5 or 6 laps.
And you can see that Surtees seems now to be trying to take advantage of every opportunity he can. He's needling Bartlett through the handling sections of the course. He seems to drop away down the straight, and as Frank Gardner very quickly pointed out, he's lost the toe. That is, he's dropped out of the slipstream of Bartlett's car down the straight, has to try and peg him up again under brakes, which indeed he does.
Into the S's now. This coming under the Shell Bridge over the northern crossing. There are 2 crossings on this track. This is also a horse racing track, and we have the western crossing near the Homestead and the northern crossing where they come out of the S's and approach the causeway. But this is a great dice. 5 cars there too. We should have Hamilton in car 9, Lawrence car 14, but they pick the other one up as they come down the straight, so we have 5 cars now in a real dice for 4th place. In the causeway they go. It's Bartlett leading Surtees. And watch this group behind. Well, there's nothing much in this group, is there? Now, as they come round to the top of the straight, we'll pick up this lead group, and we'll just, this whole group, and we'll identify all 5 of them. It should be 5, 3, 9, 14, and one other, but we'll see who they are as they come down the straight now. 6 has just gone through us. That's Max Stewart. He's running in 3rd place. There they go, 5, 3, 9, 2, and 14. 5, 3, 9, 2, and 14. So car 2 has moved into calculations, and that's Frank Matich's stablemate in car 2, Colin Bond.
Well, this is the sort of drive that Colin Bond could certainly produce. He's very steady, tremendously adaptable. He's this year's Australian Rally Champion. He's been on several past occasions a New South Wales Hill Climb Champion. He's got tremendous versatility, and there's obviously something significant in Frank Matich's choice of him as number 2 driver in the team. Colin Bond, I think, has got a great future ahead of him.
So as we see them now, we see Bartlett, then Surtees, Hamilton, Bond, and Lawrence. They're the 5 in order. The car numbers are 5, 3, 9, 2, and 14. Lawrence, the New Zealander, Colin Bond, Hamilton, and Bartlett, Australians, and John Surtees from Great Britain. That's the northern crossing, the little bumpy part there before they come into the causeway. Let's bring Frank Gardner in again. And what's it like when you're in a position like this, say in the position of Kevin Bartlett, where you know this pressure's behind you all the time, Frank?
Well, it's not so bad for Kevin. He's out in the fresh air. The chap who's starting to perspire now is John Surtees. He's sitting back eating Kevin's exhaust fumes at an amazing rate. And no matter how you try to weave in the cockpit for some fresh air, you have no alternative but to absorb what the car in front of you is putting out. Also, the rubber dust on Kevin's tyres are starting to cloud John's goggles, so you've got a vision problem cropping up about now. They've covered some 11 laps, I think, and you will find John's quite hot and sweaty, and Kevin is the cooler of the two because John is having to work his car very hard under brakes.
We're back with the leader, Frank Matich now, and Frank out there in front. You remember the day years ago, Frank, that Sterling Moss won a race here, and it was 150 degrees on the track. Now, I think today it's going to be fairly hot out there.
It's fairly hot out there, but it's not really comparable with that sort of temperature. I think Sterling was smart enough to remove the side panels off his motor car at the time and let fresh air, and he virtually ran the thing in its naked framework, so to speak of, with no surrounds at all.
Frank, this is an amazing looking car of Frank Matich's, as Repco Matich A50. To me, it looks more like a spaceship.
He's certainly gone to a lot of trouble thinking about it, and it looks like it's got fabulous protection in it for the driver. Nice fresh air going in out of a large airbox, and you can see a mark on his rear tyre where Frank has been kissing curbs on the way around. So he's obviously been trying at some stage. You can just see the whitewash off the side of the curbs where he's slithered into the side of one. But it certainly is a nice looking motor car, and it shows out very well. The colours he's chosen and everything look jolly nice.
What do you do there, Frank, if you've got a lead like that, as Frank has? He's got the machinery under him, he's got the best car, he's out in front. Do you just get right into the groove and sit on that lead and concentrate on making the car get right through the race?
Well, it's a very awkward position to be in. I should think at the moment Frank's studying his gauges. He's looking a million times a lap because they're getting rather nervous you get this sort of apprehension all the time. You know nothing's going wrong, but you keep sweeping your gauges and looking and checking your mirrors to see nobody's closed up. You're relieved to see your pit signals each lap to make sure you haven't lost on the person who's in second place. And there's an awful lot of tension going on, especially in Frank's place with a new car, where it's terribly important that it be successful.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, Graham, because Frank is on lap number 13.
Well, he doesn't have to stay there for very long, of course. It's, as Frank Gardner has very rightfully pointed out, it's an enormous problem as far as Matic is concerned. First time out in a brand new car and leading the race with no actual opposition as such. This is when everything accumulates. You've got to maintain your own concentration, and at the same time you've got a motor car which is a relatively unfamiliar proposition. You've got to hope that the whole thing works out properly, that something that you may have overlooked in this first race with the car doesn't come unscrewed or fall off.
Well, almost a third of the way through the Australian Grand Prix, and back in the pits we have Colin Hines, who's been off the track twice, making another effort to get back on the track. This is car number 10, this Victorian driver. So Colin Hines is back on, but already car 8. Bob Muir, bad luck for him, and the Mildred wagon only lasted about 1 lap. So the second fastest qualifier, Bob Muir, actually is right out of the race, and car 10 now is probably 6 or 7 laps behind. Here's some overtaking going on. Frank getting past a Stoll car and whizzing right past him. And Frank has completed 14 laps, so he's on lap 15. That's Frank Matic we're talking about. Beside us here is Australia's international driver, Frank Gardner, who unfortunately is not taking part in the race. Had a little shunt with his car yesterday and he can't compete, but he's here with us on television. And Frank Gardner has had the exhilaration of driving motor cars, also had the exhilaration of sweeping surfboats, Frank, in your day. So do you ever lose the thrill of driving a car?
I don't think you ever do, because every race is a different challenge and every day is different. You never get 2 days the same, so you never really get blasé about this at all. And you're always very thankful if you're at all successful.
Looking at these racetrack fences, Graham, it gives us a wonderful idea of speed, doesn't it? The background flying through. Actually, we're keeping the car still. It's the background that's moving to give you that exhilarating feeling of speed.
Yes, and there's no question that Matic is going particularly quickly. The 5-litre motor cars, and all of them, not merely Matic's, but all the 5-litre motor cars are very, very fast through that section of the course, from Polo down to Ledger, which is just a simple drag race. They cover in about 4 seconds.
Well, that appeared to be very late braking there, Frank.
He seems to have it very well under control, though. He never seems to have any moments with the car, which is always a very good sign that it's not been pressed in any way, which always enhances his chances of finishing, because if the equipment is being used rather severely, your chances of seeing 100 mile out under a lot of pressure lessen considerably as the seconds climb down.
The order now, John Surtees has moved past Bartlett and Stewart. He's now up in 3rd place behind Matic and Harvey. Harvey is about 10 seconds in front, but John Surtees has sizzled through the field. We had him originally at 7th place. He's got away from Bartlett, past Stewart as well. So the order now is 173.65. So the excitement, Frank Gardner, caused by John Surtees, who's way out now in car 3 after the 2 in front. Here's in 2nd place is car number 7, Johnny Harvey, Victoria. This is the Brabham Waggett, another of the 2-litre cars. And the best time, 127.2. is a time for Johnny Harvey. That's really flying in the 2-litre car. Frank, what's your best round this course?
The best I've ever achieved here is a 124.7 around here, which I done in Colin Himes' car last year. You know, I found this terribly difficult, really. So I'm very impressed with Frank's time nice and early on in the race without being pressed. And he's got lots of fuel aboard and pretty ideal conditions, and certainly it's a very creditable time to be turning in at this early stage in a motor race.
Well, the leaders now are on lap 17, so still a long way to go. You mentioned 124.7, Frank Gardner. That means that you've actually recorded a better time than the official record, which is 124.8. Does that suggest that you can go out and really go for time in practice, but it's a different story in a race?
Well, you're always very keyed up in practice, and it's really not a different story in the race. Come the race, I think at the last international, I led Frank from start to finish, and although I was under considerable pressure from him all the time, track conditions alter so rapidly with oil and tyre rubber, and if you get offline during a motor race with the rubber that's coming off the tyres, it's like hitting a lot of ball bearings. and you can very quickly back this whole issue into a fence at high speed. And you must be the concentration in a race is a lot more than what it would be in practice. So therefore you're slightly down on your time due to these conditions and absorbing other competitors. It's very hard to get a flying lap during a race. You're always overtaking somebody, and you have to allow for these things.
And wise words from Frank Gardner. Graham Howard, one amazing thing I've always felt about Warwick Farm is his tremendous improvement in times down the years. It wasn't so long ago that races were won here in about 1:40. Now, there have been slight alterations to the track. How much faster is the track now than it was, say, 5 years ago, as we watch Frank Matic go around? Yes, how much faster is this track now, Graham, in alteration?
Well, I would say that compared to the condition the circuit was in when it was resurfaced, the condition it's in now, it would have been a very difficult circuit for cars with these present very wide tyres. Particularly noticeable is the width of the rear tyres. For example, here on Matic's car, about 16-inch rims. Bumps tend to deflect the car considerably. The smoother the circuit, the better these very sticky tyres hang on. So that it's a combination, I would imagine, of the resurfacing of the circuit plus the tremendous development in tyre technology. But fundamentally, the big improvement has come in tyre design and in suspension design to make the most of the tyres. There's still an enormous amount of black art involved in setting up suspension so that the motor car is controllable while the tyres still remain in contact with the ground. And in fact, some people actually use computers to determine the proper sighting of various suspension components.
Frank Matic, the leader, is in lap number 20. So after he completes this one, 25 laps to go of the 45-lap course. And when he completes this lap, I'll do a complete run through and work out the first 7 or 8 leading cars. Frank Matic moving round to halfway around here into the S's, where our camera boys have actually lopped down some trees to give you some much better shots of this course. I think, Frank, from a television point of view, this is easily the best pictorial coverage we've ever had of Warwick Farm.
It's comparable to anything I've ever seen anywhere, and I've watched a few television coverages all over the world. I must say the camera work, the way they are able to follow these cars, and it really is a creditable thing with the sun and the light the way it is coming past the lake. The reflection there is very difficult for a cameraman to keep a car in the centre of the picture, and these boys are achieving just this all the time. I'll bet you Frank Matic is sitting there now in a lather of sweat, wondering whether his Repco engine is as healthy as when he started. My goodness, all thoughts are running through his mind now. And what a beautiful shot that is of him. Surtees.
Well, there's a sensation. John Surtees is going out of the race. That's John Surtees, number 3, who was in the 3rd place. So 3rd and 4th are out, and John Surtees is way over on the far side of the track, is probably in trouble and out of the race. What a great disappointment, Frank Gardner.
Well, he certainly is, because the man's travelled 12,000 miles to have half a motor race, but at least he's half a race off better than I am, so he should complain.
So here he is, the hand up, Graham. That indicates that he's slowing down and pulling up, but must be something wrong with the car. It seems to be still going, so what are your thoughts on it?
Well, there are so many things that could possibly go wrong. Obviously, it seems to have some sort of motive power, but not very much. I don't think it's rolling at this stage under its own momentum.
Very soon you're going to see the leader, Frank Matic, come through. Frank Matic is coming round into that area. You'll see car number 1 coming, sizzling through this area, but John Surtees, a great disappointment this. Well, we've seen 2 of our international drivers, Frank Gardner, who's sitting right beside us here in the television commentary, unable to take part in the race, and now John Surtees. But there's the leader going through. It's Frank Matic, and he's coming in now to complete lap number 21. Now, as Frank comes past the finishing line, we'll take an approximate check of the margins now between the first leading cars, because without Surtees and Stewart there, Graham has the stopwatch going. He's just ready now as he's coming down to the straight. He'll be coming round into the straight now, and we should have Harvey 2nd and Bartlett 3rd, but that's how it may be. And Colin Bond is another replacement, so they're dropping out right, left and centre. That's another one of the first 7 out of the race. So we have Surtees, Stewart and Bond in trouble. Yes, John Surtees coming in car 3, Colin Bond in car 2. Bob Muir in car 8 didn't last a lap. Frank Gardner didn't even get to the grid, so it's a race of tragedy for many of the drivers. Car 7 in trouble, Graham Howard.
Yes, this is John Harvey, who waved his hand sadly over his shoulder as he came past on the lap before, and he was misfiring at the time. He's now been passed unnoticed there by Graham Lawrence in the best place now of the other 2-litre cars. That's our third trouble from a 2-litre car at this stage, and Harvey's waving past other motor cars. And it looks like Surtees coming up the pit lane again, and he gets waved out onto the circuit and storms out onto the circuit again.
John Surtees limping in. We have behind Frank Maddich. Well, this means that Frank Maddich's lead is going to be increased even further, and if Frank can keep his car on the road, he must win the race.
Yes, it certainly looks that way at this stage, Norman, but as for who could possibly fill second place, there's about 15 cars left in the race, and all of them look as though they've got a very good chance at this stage.
Car 7, Johnny Harvey, bad luck for him. He was running in second place. We saw car 14 there, Graham Lawrence is still on the track, but car 5, Kevin Bartlett, probably would now be in second place, somewhere around about a minute behind Mattich. And we see number 14 and number 9. This is a good dice. It will be for third place between these two. This is Alan Hamilton of Victoria and Graham Lawrence of New Zealand. They've been carrying on this battle for a long, long time, and this could give us some good motor racing. Graham Lawrence, Frank Gardner, a New Zealander, they've produced some great motor races.
Yeah, I've watched Graham over the years race, and he's a nice, tidy little lad. He doesn't get too flustered. He never presses himself too hard, and always has an immaculate piece of equipment. And I should think with the miles he's done under his belt, Alan Hamilton's relatively a novice in Graham Lawrence's company. And I should think he's starting to feel a little uncomfortable with Graham breathing so close to him now.
What do these 2-litre cars get to down the straight, Frank?
2-litre car here should make around about 146 mile an hour, 148, whereas a 5,000 is getting close onto the 160 mark. This is a car like Mattich, should be very close to the 160.
Well, there's a real dice. Cars 5, 9 and 14. That's the race for second by the look of it, Graham. Because car 5 is Kevin Bartlett, car 9's Alan Hamilton, car 14 is Lawrence, and here's some... And Frank Maddich has just whizzled past us here, sizzled past us many miles, over probably 100 miles an hour down the straight, but that's the race for second between 5, 9 and 14, and this looks to be top-class motor racing.
Yes, indeed, and it's yet again a demonstration of how quickly Alan Hamilton's come up in the Formula 5000 category. He stepped right into the deep end after some intermittent and brilliant performances in Porsches of various kinds, sports and sedan Porsches. Bought a Formula 5000 car and learned about big-time motor racing in a big way.
Now, here are the other two. We're coming up to them. Car 9 is Hamilton, and ahead of him should be car 5, just ahead of this one, so it's 5, 9. There's a lap car, is number 18, Clive Millis, but there's 5 just in front of 9, and behind them is number 14. They're running, we should think at the moment, second, third and fourth, because I don't think that Bartlett's been to the pits. He's still in the track. Now, here's some lap times coming up. A new time for Frank Maddich, 1:25.4. which is the best lap so far, and that's only 0.6 of a second outside the official record. John Surtees recorded a 1:26.7. Kevin Bartlett a 1:27.3. They're the next fastest, although Colin Bond before he left the track did a 1:27.2. So also Max Stewart did a 1:27.3. But Frank Maddich is out in front, 1:25.4, and here he is at the top of the straight. Now, Frank Gardner, with Frank Maddich so far out in front, what about taking us round the track and telling us, if you're at the wheel of this car, what you'd be doing?
Well, if I was at the wheel of this particular car, my goodness, I should be rather nervous now, having the race so far in the bag, and just sitting now, hoping everything goes all right. And Frank is just sitting there, and you would be down this straight at around about, you just about picks top gear up here, and you watch your rev counter slowly climb up to about 8,000 revs. And you leave your brake into the 200-yard board, braking rather heavily, and drop it straight back into second gear, bypassing all the others. Start to accelerate out of the S's. You change gear in between the two corners. Keep very tight apexes because it's most important. If you miss the apex, you are into the fence. Frank's concentrating very well there, moves across the road nicely. You another tight apex here. very careful across the crossing because it can come terribly oily and you can come unstuck so easily. Frank, nice line there, brakes rather heavily into the corner and just rolls the car around on a trailing throttle, gets his power on about here and accelerates to the outside of the road, just dipping the wheel on the edge there. Hard on the brakes again, another gear change, around the corner, just slipping the apex with the front wheels and accelerating hard up to Polo, where you remain in fourth gear for a quick burst along the straight where you probably see around about 120 miles an hour in fourth gear. Then slowly keeping about the middle of the road to get yourself on the left-hand line for your next corner, which is a reasonably important thing to see you comfortably across the crossing to start your lap down the straight again and have a breath of fresh air to study all your instruments and a bit of a breather.
Well, I think, Graham, after that Frank Gardner, if he ever retires from motor racing, will make a commentator out of him. Out in front is Frank Matic, and car 9 there is coming here. Alan Hamilton with Lawrence behind him from New Zealand, and this could be the race for second, although car 5, we haven't seen that for a moment, may be in front. But let's see up there. We look now as we can see them from the top of the straight and watch these two come through. But we do 9 and 14 Hamilton and Lawrence, but 5 Bartlett may be in front of those. But no, I don't see car 5 on the track at the moment. We're just waiting for these two to come down. Yes, number 5 has just gone through. Car 5 is about 50 yards ahead of number 9, so 5's still there. There he is in front. So here's the race for second place, and this is a great go, Frank.
Yes, it is certainly a good go, and I really subscribe to Kevin. I think he's worked hard all the year, and you always sort of pick your favourites out, and I do hope he manages to hold off this pending challenge, which seems to be cropping up at the back as the race wears on. And Kevin's equipment still looks strong, so he stands a jolly good chance of holding them off. But it's not a good time in the race to be being hard pressed by two such talented people.
Now, in the group there we have a lap car number 26 is in the middle of the group, where the 3 numbers are 5, 9 and 14. Number 5 is Kevin Bartlett, number 9 is Alan Hamilton, and number 14 is Graham Lawrence. New South Wales, Victoria and New Zealand respectively, and here are the 3 of them. Now the leader has completed 34 laps, 11 laps to go for Frank Matic, and this is the dice for second place between Bartlett, Hamilton and Lawrence. Now which on reputation would you pick to run second here, Frank?
Well, as I said earlier, I would pick Graham Lawrence. I think he's the cooler customer, and he will have paced himself with a lot less enthusiasm than the other people there, although Kevin is not to be underrated. But Lawrence has the advantage of a lighter car, and his fuel load is getting down, and his car will perform a lot better than the more high-powered motor car, which has probably reached its terminal lap time about now. Whereas as the load lightens on a 2-litre car, it becomes much easier to drive. So this makes Lawrence a very real threat towards the end of the race.
You used the term a terminal lap time, was it, Frank? Terminal lap time, does that mean there's a point in the race where you estimate that your car will go better than at any other stage?
Well, it's a time where your fuel load gets down, the car always reaches an optimum balance. And this is a time that you really do press on, because if you're ever going to consolidate yourself, you must do it about then. And with the 5,000 car, its consolidation period should have been reached about 10 laps back, whereas the little 2-litre can only improve.
Now, with the 3 going like this and you have 10 laps to go, Frank, it would appear that one decisive move by any one of these 3 could clinch second place. Is this how you would approach it? If with 10 laps to go in the race and the 3 of you all dicing, do you try and make one decisive move, or do you maintain pressure all the time?
No, it's pressure all the time. Every corner must be a winner. You can't afford to lose an inch anywhere about this stage. And at the same time, you can't afford to abuse the equipment to the stage where you're getting soggy brake pedals and hot clutches and ropey old gear changes. You really must smooth yourself out, although you're starting to feel tired and uncomfortable. You just must smooth yourself right out about now, or you find you can toss away a motor race and an awful lot of money real quickly.
Well, fatigue must be a factor that comes into this. You're out there for an hour and a quarter, and overseas it's a 2-hour Grand Prix. You must be in reasonably good physical condition, Frank.
Well, I tell all my sponsors this, but it's a bit of a confidence trick. It does play a very important part. You can see that little 2-litre Lawrence is using up less road than the larger car. You see, it's got much more reserve. Very uncomfortable position for a leader to be in with a man like Lawrence breathing down your neck. They pull up enormously under brakes.
as they go round, it's Bartlett 5, Hamilton 9 and Lawrence 14. And looking from the point of view of Australian motor racing, this tremendous crowd, Graham, this is a wonderful scene here at Warwick Farm. This is right up to the crowd standards of the international meetings we have in February.
Yes, it's a very similar style of field, a similar style of program. The weather's much the same. This is, of course, Warwick Farm's big meeting beside its Tasman meeting each year. People have become accustomed to some fairly high-pressure motor racing at this time of the year.
Well, we're looking for Frank Matic now, repeating. He has had best lap time of 1:25.4. And here's Frank Matic on Creek Corner. And an important lap time here. Car number 6, Max Stewart, has recorded a 1:25.8. Now, Max Stewart was out of the race earlier in the pits for a long stop. Well, on that performance of a 1:25.8, Max Stewart must be very, very unfortunate because he came back out of the pits to record that time. That would suggest, Frank Gardner, that Max Stewart has the ability to finish second, or to be second to Frank Matic.
Well, this just consolidates the thinking that Max Stewart isn't Gold Star champion for nothing. He's a pretty talented sort of a boy, and he knows all about motor cars. So it's just a shame he's wasted so much time in the pit when he's very much into contention time-wise.
Well, Frank Matic here now will probably be getting very close to that second group of cars. We have the group of 5, 9 and 14. That's Bartlett, Hamilton and Lawrence. And Frank must be almost a lap in front. So let's see what happens here. Frank just roared past us now, probably round about Hume Straight on the far side. The other cars are just in front of him. But Frank's lead must be very close to a lap. And Frank has now completed lap number 37. He has 8 to go. Now here's the second group. They're about 30 seconds ahead of Matic, so he's about a minute ahead really in terms of time. So as Matic left the pit straight, or the straight here, these cars were at the end of Hume Straight. That's about 30 seconds apart, and we're watching numbers 5, 9 and 14. This is Kevin Bartlett running second. Alan Hamilton in 9 is in third place, and right behind them number 14, Graham Lawrence of New Zealand. And this three-way dice has been going on for something like 25 to 30 laps. And the pressure always, I suppose, Graham, is on the man in front.
Yes, this is, fortunately, it's the sort of thing that Kevin Bartlett can sustain. He's demonstrated for a long time that he can concentrate for long periods. More interesting, I think, is Alan Hamilton, who's been able to turn on tremendous bursts of concentration for short periods. This was the kind of ability which has made him Australian hill climb champion in 1966, 1971. But in longer races, as distinct from hill climb sprints, there's always been the suspicion that Hamilton could suddenly let things slip through his fingers. At this stage, he seems to be making very few mistakes at all, and he's getting the car quite vigorously sideways and not really making a bad effort at all. Pointing now down into Creek, he's closed right up behind Bartlett under brakes. Out they come, leaving behind Lawrence initially on that enormous truckloads of acceleration that the Formula 5000s have got. And there's Lawrence's little white BT29 Brabham nibbling in behind Hamilton there, making up inches everywhere through the S's. He's right behind Hamilton as they leap and bump across the crossings. He'll be with Hamilton again down to the causeway.
Now on lap number 40 at Creek Corner, that's about, 20 seconds or so behind the other three, as Frank Matic the leader. The other three cars are on lap 39. Matic is on lap 40. So we'll have 4 cars approximately on the same lap. So getting towards the last 5 laps of this race, 4 cars on the one lap. Well, that's a fairly good performance by those other 3 cars, Frank Gardner, to stay on the same lap as the leader.
It's a very good performance. The thing that just crossed my mind as I hope Frank's done a petrol consumption test with his car, because this is the one thing that usually catches you out on a new car. And if Frank has done a petrol consumption test, I bet you he's feeling happy. And if he hasn't done one, my goodness, you feel ever so miserable, wondering whether it's going to pick up the last couple of gallons. But Alan Hamilton is a surprise of the meeting, being so close to be able to close up on man Kevin Bartlett's talents at this late stage. He must be feeling pretty pleased with his driving. Little Graham Lawrence hanging on there, always tidy in the middle of the road, never on the outside, as you notice. He doesn't use up all the road the big cars do.
Well, they've completed lap 41, and although this is the race for second place, Graham Howard, it's motor racing at its best, and here's a go.
Yes, well, this looks like Hamilton making his definite effort round the outside of Bartlett under brakes, down the bottom of the straight. Bartlett's on the optimum line. He's on the inside, and Hamilton will have to go around him if he can't get past, and that's the way it's resolved. Well, he's tipped his hand now, and there's no doubt that Bartlett's car will suddenly become about 3 feet wider. A tremendous effort here because Bartlett's got to cover both sides of the road behind him. Hamilton has to pass Bartlett and at the same time make sure he keeps Graham Lawrence behind, and Graham Lawrence is sitting there ready to pounce through a minuscule gap that either of these drivers could leave through a moment of inattention.
Now here's Frank Maddich, yes, down the straight with 1 lap to go. Frank Maddich a lap to go to win the Australian Grand Prix for 1971. And I think as Frank Maddich goes round, he could have no better man to talk about this win of his than Frank Gardner.
Well, I must say I'm terribly impressed, and certainly everybody else who's going to run into Tasman will be impressed when they read about this, because you're going to have a very good car to beat our local Frank Maddich with his Repco engine. It's certainly very creditable to Repco. He must feel quite pleased with this whole effort. It's only a very unfortunate thing would put him out in the dying yards of this race. He seems to have the whole lot under control. It's run beautifully from start to finish. He's just pacing himself in the middle of the road, taking his time now on the last lap, but not using up any more road than necessary, and making sure none of the instruments shift to the wrong place. And I should think now the pressure's off, he's feeling rather relaxed with only a few corners left. It is a creditable effort, there's no doubt about that.
Well, Frank Maddich just coming round Polo Corner for the last time. Those comments by international racing driver Frank Gardner. And here's Frank Maddich coming to the top of the straight. The finishing judges there, the checkered flag is out. It will be shown to him very soon now. And here's Frank Maddich coming down to win the Australian Grand Prix for 1971. And with Graham Howard, let's go back to the big dice for second place.
Let's just see how they turn out, Norman, and it looks like Bartlett leading again through the S for the final time. Still Hamilton in second, and still Lawrence tucked in behind him. First, second and third in this three-sided dice for second place. Bartlett still with a fairly useful lead of about 50 yards, perhaps, coming down from the crossing around the top of the lake to the causeway. And there's Lawrence slipping on the inside of Hamilton, under braking for the causeway, didn't find the gap he needed. Hamilton very conscious now of the fact that he's under enormous pressure from Lawrence. Nonetheless, Hamilton's best race, I think, by far to date in his 1 year of Formula 5000 racing. Bartlett now wheeling through Ledger, 1 corner remaining before second place in the checkered flag. Through he goes, and in fact, Hamilton clung to his third place. Lawrence was not able to make any impression on him and finishes fourth.
And as we saw the result, first was car number 1, Frank Maddich, driving the Repco Maddich A50. Second placing was car number 5, and car number 5 was Kevin Bartlett, driving the McLaren Chev. Third placing to car number 9, that was Alan Hamilton of Victoria, also a McLaren Chev. And fourth place to car number 14, Graham Lawrence of New Zealand, driving a Brabham BT30. So the smaller cars going well, but here he is, the winner, Frank Maddich, coming down the straight at the end of his victory lap. A wonderful performance, a tremendous roar from the crowd, a big crowd here over in the racing grandstands across in the paddock area. There's a close-up of Frank Maddich, the winner, and here's something really welcome for him, that soft drink. I suppose you get very dry, Frank Gardner.
Yeah, Frank will be very dry after that. Your dehydration point in a cockpit is the temperature's usually over 100 all the time, and you really do need that drink. And Frank has certainly earned it today. He's surrounded by all the bevy of beauties and well-wishers, and he'd be feeling very pleased with himself. This is the minute you usually remember.
So the official result of the 1971 Australian Grand Prix. First, Frank Maddich, a Repco Maddich A50. The second placing went to Kevin Bartlett, a McLaren Chev. Third placing went to car number 9, Alan Hamilton of Victoria, a McLaren Chev. And fourth place to the New Zealand driver, and that was in car number 14, Graham Lawrence, the Brabham BT30. And the winner, Frank Maddich. So a red-letter day in Australian motor racing history. An Australian driver in an Australian car winning the Australian Grand Prix.